Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man, and my co-host is the legendary Tom Reed.
Hey, man. How's it going, Doug?
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, good to see you, man.
Yeah, tonight we have a very special guest. His name is Doug Sakmann. He is a series production designer for Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say welcome again.
Yeah, how you guys doing? That's an incredible intro. Very powerful. It's and true.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my creation, actually. But thank you.
Very cool.
I'm always tooting his own horn.
Yeah, I have to. You do yours.
Yeah, I'm really glad you can make it, Doug. You know.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. In regards to my first question, and I talked to Tom about this backstage before you came on screen. I'd like to know a little bit about your background and how you got involved with what you do.
Well, I've always been interested in film and filmmaking and unsolved mysteries specifically. I grew up watching, from as long as I can remember watching television. This was on the air. I mean, it's almost 40 years now. I think it's coming up on 40 years pretty soon. And I started as an actor. Actually, you have my headshot from like 10 or 12 years ago as the image you're using. But I started as an actor and just got involved behind the scenes. And then I started doing special effects stuff. Started as an actor and got involved with Trauma Entertainment, which is actually a huge part of my history. Still is. I mean, I've been working with them for almost 24 years now, and I still am working with them. We're doing a sequel to Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD this year or next year, and the guys that make the Toxic Avenger, Lloyd Kaufman, is my mentor, I would say, certainly.
Didn't you also work on the Toxic Avenger?
The first feature film I was in and produced by the end of it was Citizen Toxie, the Toxic Avenger Part 4. Actually, the poster is right there on my wall.
Cool. Very cool.
But yeah, so
I think I've seen them all, actually.
Yeah, so I'm in that, and the opening scene is a special student getting shot. I get shot 3 times, and I learned a lot of special effects and all kinds of production design from Lloyd and Trauma, and took that on to 23, 24 years later. I mean, I guess I started working with Unsolved Mysteries in 2000 and in 2018, early 2019. So, 20.
So what would
Did you die in the film when you got shot 3 times?
I did. I had a little bit of a thing, and then I died. Yeah.
You weren't in there very long then. Was it like the middle or right in the beginning, or
it's in the first 5 minutes? Actually, bleached blonde hair, much shorter hair, and
wow. Well,
the question I got for you is, what would be your favorite unsolved mysteries?
Wow.
mean, I get this question a lot, and I do have to say the UFO ones are certainly the more, not favorable, but just more, I wouldn't even say memorable. It's just a different, because all the other ones are so, I mean, it's all real, and they're all about different types of things that happen to people in life. A lot of times murdered or suicide or, just disappearing. And then the UFO thing is another aspect of things that happen to people, in a different way. So it's just
a topic right now too.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm looking at an article right now. I wanted to mention, you guys came out. I got an alert. It comes up as, headline news.
Yeah.
Pentagon's UFO investigation finds no evidence of alien origin. So through the pandemic, baiting us and saying we have all these UFOs, we're calling it something different, UAPs or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, they're changing to the next news cycle. So now they're going to come out and say, oh, there's absolutely nothing out there. We have no proof.
That's why NASA gets funded so heavily, because there's nothing out there.
No, they're actually slamming the lid shut, just like Project Sign said. It's a threat to national security, and they had over 200 classified pages submitted to Congress recently concerning objects flying around that they have no clue what they are. So if that is the case, that there's no evidence that they're extraterrestrial, then what are they?
Well, that's the follow-up. This whole article, it's on ABC News that came out like 9:30 p.m. Today somehow. I guess or yesterday, maybe it's yesterday. Pentagon says they have not yet been able to find any evidence that extraterrestrials may be responsible for hundreds of UFO incidents they're reviewing, or that any alien beings have crashed on Earth. So this is, it's ahead of next week. They have to give them some report because they said 6 months ago they're going to do reports. So this is like what's going to be in that report. They do this every single time to just bury the lead.
It's going to be that there is no report.
Yeah, of course. But then it says there's 144 incidents that they reviewed. They don't have any explanation for, but it's not UFOs, which aren't UFOs.
Obviously, they can't rule that out. If they don't know what it is, you can't say you can't label it.
They were concerned about it 6 months ago or less. Now they're not that concerned about it.
Right.
Yeah. Some of them they did explain away as drones from China and other things like that. But in regards to most of them, they have no explanation. So in the pure sense of the word unidentified flying object, it would be that. But then again, a lot of people make the jump from UFO to alien immediately, and that's not the case. Not necessarily. We don't have the information for that. But I do believe that credible testimony is out there. I interviewed Lou Elizondo, and Lou Elizondo came out and said point blank, there are vehicles with no control surfaces, no wings, no rudders, no propulsion trails, nothing. Smooth surfaces that are outmaneuvering our most advanced technologies, right?
Going into the water,
Going into the water, transmedium effects, hyperacceleration, all of this. But now Congress is saying, ooh, nothing to see here. They're just trying to cover it up.
They're just changing the classification. So like, okay, UFOs are related to aliens. So now they're UAPs. So that when you see an article about that, if you don't know what to look for, it's like, oh, it's a drone. It's just they're classifying as something different. So people look at it differently. They don't think about it. And the switches happen over the last 4 to 5 years. There's people that are saying outright, this is what's actually happening. And then there's like the big conversation in the mass media this isn't a big deal. It's whatever. Every 6 months they'll change whatever about it. And
right. I think they're just trying to take away attention from the subject and kind of deal with it behind the scenes.
Well, there's that, but then there's also when they're trying to deflect attention from something else going on, like Russia attacking Ukraine or all that kind of stuff. They're like, oh yeah, UFOs are kind of
front page news. Right. Exactly. Right.
It's so crazy.
Can you imagine all the stuff that happened during COVID? Everybody's worried about a shot. Behind the scenes.
Outside. Everyone's inside, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
Right. Well, anyways, getting back to our interview of Doug himself. Doug, tell us a little bit more about, say, some of your movies you've done.
So this is some things from my website here. More recently, I was in terms of production design stuff, the stuff I do for Unsolved Mysteries. I did a documentary called Dreamers Never Die, the story of Ronnie James Dio that is on Showtime right now. And
that's right.
That's the third one there, Dio. And then the other one that's actually not on that one, but I did a documentary series on Phil Spector. That's another true crime series that's also on Showtime. So those are two things that are on Showtime right now. That movie Locked In is actually a pretty cool action thriller that you can see on Netflix and Amazon. But a lot of this stuff is, some of it's older. You can see like Derailed, Malicious, Cut, Shoot, Kill. All these movies are on Amazon or Netflix if you look for them. But then Liquid Death, I was talking about this earlier. The Liquid Death Mountain Water. This is actually water. This is a prop from the movie, but we did an environmental movie that's on Amazon about these cans killing people for not recycling, basically.
Oh, very cool. And you made the blood on the outside of the can?
Yeah, pancake syrup, some red food coloring, a little bit of green food coloring. This one was on a string. It actually still has some string on it, like a fishing line to make it dance around because it's literally like a Gremlins type movie, but instead of Gremlins, it's these cans running around like killing people with an axe and like Night of Living Dead style, chasing after them and stuff. It's really funny.
So next time someone says to you, "Hey man, nice can," you're
Nice cans, Liquid Death.
Doug's got a nice can.
Yeah, there you go.
Will Carsola, who's the creative director for the company, also directed it, and he designed the skull on there. He also animated Mr. Pickles and created Mr. Pickles for Adult Swim.
So how did you get those cans made? Is that's not a real drink yet, right?
No, this is you can get this on Amazon. You can get this in Whole Foods. You can get this, at different events, bars.
So did they get any royalty for you using that particular product on the show?
No, the company who they hired us to make a horror movie about marketing for them.
Oh, beautiful!
So
that's cool.
It's called Dead Before Death. I think if you pull up that screen again, it's on there. Dead Till Death. It's the fourth one on there. And it's really, really cool. It's actually one of the funner projects I worked on right out of COVID. Like, it's one of the first things I worked on out of COVID. Shakespeare Shitstorm is actually the new Troma movie. I can't stress that enough. That's actually in theaters now, doing film festivals, good amount of DVD, and it's hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm. That's very important. It's a commentary on social media and social justice warriors, and based around Shakespeare's The Tempest. So it's a follow-up to Romeo and Juliet, which was another movie that Troma had done in the past. And ShakespeareShitstorm.com is the website. So it's
Gotcha.
it's the opposite end of the spectrum from Unsolved Mysteries. That we deal with a lot of the realism and real life stuff with Unsolved Mysteries and these true crime things, but then Troma is literally the exact opposite of the spectrum in terms of out there craziness, but also dealing with real life issues and commentary.
Okay, real quick, I want to cover that you also worked on some music videos.
Yeah, I do a lot of music videos over the years. These are just some of the highlights of the last. I mean, it's 20 years. For one of the first big ones I did was a Newfound Glory music video with Troma that I'm actually playing Sergeant Kabuki Man in, and that was like literally 20 years ago. I've done a bunch of Motion City soundtrack music videos there, Cannibal Corpse music videos. The last one there is Dragonfire with R.A. the Rugged Man and some of the members of the Wu-Tang Clan. CKY, the Wonder Years, the AKAs, Angelo from Fishbone, Angelo Moore, a lot of different cool artists, a lot of different types of music too.
Cool. And one last thing I was going to bring up here is, wait a minute, these are some films that you were working on? What are these?
Are kind of more short film things. That Trollville actually is with Henry Zabrowski from Last Podcast on the Left, and that's a really cool series we did. It was for IFC, and now they have it on their YouTube channel on Last Podcast on the Left, but it's something that I actually co-produced and production designed. And it's about a kind of an internet troll evolving into a human being and coming out of his basement kind of thing.
Wasn't Ronnie? Did Ronnie work on that with you?
Ronnie?
Yeah, is there Ronnie in New York? No?
I know Ronnie Raygun. Are you talking about?
I guess, yeah. I don't know his last name.
Yeah. I've known him from Troma for years. He didn't work on that, but I've worked with him quite a bit in the past. He's a great dude.
I got one last graphic. Here we go. I think these are your TV shows.
Oh yeah, so these are some TV shows. Yeah, I did Gordon Ramsay's 24 Hours to Hell and Back. That was a pretty cool 2-hour season finale where we came in and fixed the town, did take over the town, but it was a town in Spring City, Maryland that kind of was built in a weird way where it flooded like twice in a row and destroyed the town. And we came in and like fixed 4 of the businesses and did a bunch of community outreach stuff. Impractical Jokers, actually another awesome TV show experience with the New York City Zombie Crawl, where we played a prank in a sewer and brought in like an army of zombies to attack one of the guys in the show.
Yeah, very cool. All right, Tom, take it away.
Oh, I get an opportunity to ask a question now. Really?
So
What
it
half an hour?
there.
No, man. I was just I didn't get a chance to look at the new. I haven't watched the new UFO episode you worked on. Which you want to give me an idea what's going on with that and what you find interesting about it, since that seems to be your thing anyway. And
Yeah. I mean, it is, like, very not similar to, but there are some correlations to the ways that the public perceived the UFO and saw what was going on. It was another mass sighting event, like the first season we did with you and everyone up in the Berkshires there. And but this is Unsolved Mysteries, has a way of finding the stories that has more cohesive evidence behind it that you can people can grasp their mind around a little bit more, I guess. Like this one, it's a guy with the National Weather Service, a radar operator named Jack Bushong in '94 that was just working. He was overnight radar operator at the Weather Service, and the police were getting all of these calls of people seeing UFOs and lights all over Lake Michigan area and where was it? Holland, Michigan, and kind of on the coast of Lake Michigan. And he was just doing his night shift, and there's recordings, because it was all these recordings of people calling to the police, calling in and saying what they're seeing, where they're seeing it, and then the police are like, we're getting so many calls, let's call the radar guy, the guy who has the radar, and have him check it out. So they have this police recording of the police calling the radar guy, and he's like, he sounds disinterested. He's like, yeah, what's going on? And they're like, can you check out this thing on the radar? And you see him, and we talked to him, and I did the recreation, so I figured he told me how the radar machine worked. He said it was like a giant Etch-a-Sketch basically knob, where you turn one and you're moving your radar, the back and forth, and then the other one up and down.
Yep.
And he just started seeing these things and tracked them for hours on the phone with the cops. And then there's all these people that we interviewed that correlate with what he was seeing. So for the first time in the episode, there's people who are on the ground seeing the lights, and then we're bringing the guy who has the radar proof that they were actually there, saying, this is what I saw. And some of the reports is that these things were shooting up and down altitudes and so fast back and forth that if something alive was inside of it that was a human, they would have been destroyed, like with the force and the altitude. So,
interesting.
But
according to the Pentagon, that didn't happen.
Accordingly today to the Pentagon, it doesn't happen. But if you look at some of the additional evidence and follow more of this story, it's not mentioned in the show. It might have been mentioned just as a comment, but not really gone into. But there are, I pulled it up actually because it's so interesting about this case, is there was that night, 4 groups of UFOs were tracked on sophisticated equipment across the United States. 24 objects came from the west coast of California towards Lake Michigan and met in the middle. And then, this guy's account of the radar is seeing all of these objects that people had witnessed all over that area of Michigan go over the lake and just start disappearing. Whether they went up or down, he doesn't know, because he was just seeing them on the radar. But they were just disappearing. He was seeing a bunch of them. And there's these maps of all this radar. And then there's 12 objects from the East Coast. So all these UFOs were coming in up from Canada across the United States, converging over Lake Michigan, and then going up or down. And then there's another report that's also in this additional material that someone was on the lake and saw what looked like a white waterfall. There was some kind of city in the sky, and it was pulling water up out of the lake into whatever.
I've actually heard of that before.
Yeah,
I've actually heard of that many times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So that's what they're saying. I mean, it's the whole thing. It says, they were camping on the lake, and someone said there was a storm coming, and they're like, okay, we'll be fine. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, they're woken up and the wind is going crazy. And
there was a big fishing ship in it, right? There was a big fishing ship in that one where they're out.
Well, this just says they thought it was a tidal wave coming towards them.
I remember that.
They realized it wasn't moving. It was going up. It wasn't coming towards them. It was just there coming up, They said the lights looked like a huge city in the sky. The light was right about the water, like 10 to 20 feet above the water, and it was just pulling all of this water up into the sky.
I remember hearing about that.
They're saying something that the authorities, was it like a lake snow effect where, it was just snowing on the lake because it was colder or something like that, but it was just one segment. It wasn't the whole lake. It was just one spot, and it was stayed there, and it moved towards them, and then it just disappeared. Yeah. I mean, it says they ran off before it even disappeared. They just got the fuck out of there.
You know what? The thing is, Berkshire's UFO was all over water.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We're hearing a lot more, they always say stuff about we have all this technology with these cameras. Why is nothing being caught on camera? I mean, they're not going to be caught unless they want to be caught. They're that fast and that ability to shift out of whatever. But if they're going into the water, it's much easier for them to fucking disappear too.
Yeah, there's a lot of footage. I mean, we've got a lot of footage from the area you were in. The bridge and everything. In our case, do you know that there's crop circles there in 2012 and 2013 that showed up? Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah. And there's pictures of that and pictures of the orbs right over the cornfields. I mean, they're taken by local farmers and stuff even to this day. And so, I see a lot of, but then again, according to the Pentagon,
I was going to say that really tall corn you got too with the really long ears.
Yeah. Grows 17 feet high, 15 to 17. I got corn that's like 2.5 to 3 feet long.
Well, the actual cobs?
Yeah, single cobs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we got pictures. I mean, he could probably show you some of that, but that's right where you were because you were at the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. I don't know what you got in this.
I do have one picture of it somewhere here.
Of course, none of that.
Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah, you got it, really? Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. I knew I had it.
It's cool because you were there, right? You walked right down that. No, that's just some. Yeah, I don't know what's been going on lately. People sent me that. I guess people are just going there and getting in touch.
That's a cob of corn stuck to a
that's
plant.
not what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but that was corn. Anyways, on one side of the field, it's affected. On the other side of the field, it's not.
Right. Yeah. It
kind of correlates with where the crop circle was.
Well, in the area of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
There's actually one thing that's in the because there's actually 2 UFO episodes in this season too, and one is partially UFO because it's actually went to the Navajo Nation and went with the Navajo Rangers and went through all of their supernatural experiences, a lot of which are based around UFO things, and they had experienced that kind of not mirrored but was similar to something that happened in the other incident with cars getting magnetized or parts of cars getting magnetized and this kind of stuff. And there was one with a woman who had she was driving in a car late at night and she had an orb or some kind of craft following her. And she said it beamed, some kind of bright light through her at a certain direction or something like that. I don't, I'm kind of paraphrasing exactly what it was, but the Rangers went to investigate her car and it, they had a compass. And every place else in the car, it was fine. But when they got to the points, they kind of were able to trace a path, like where, it was acting weird on one side. It was like magnetized to one point, and then another point where it kind of looked like it would put a beam straight through her head. It went through one side of the car to the other, and then she got some kind of crazy brain tumor and died of a brain tumor.
Wow!
Like in the spot that technically she would have gotten this beam through from whatever object it was.
See, they just came out recently, didn't they? And just said that they're admitting to biological effects from up close encounters. I mean, Tom has told me and shared with me that he's got biological effects, possibly from his encounters. Share with us, Tom.
Yeah, what'd you mention? I couldn't really hear you. It was kind of faint. What'd you say? Biological what?
Biological effects from
Oh
being
yeah.
exposed to what you went through.
Well, Melanie and I both have the same rare eye issue, which is really kind of strange. I've had 5 or 6 operations on my eyes. I have Melanie, we have the same eye issue. And by the way, I stand by Melanie. She's the real deal, as is Jan Green. And the detached retina, retina erosion. For a long time, I have to wear glasses all the time, even if just to have them tinted. I mean, because my eyes let too much light in. So for a long time, I had to put packets of, believe it or not, cotton balls in front of my eyes to block out the light.
Oh, wow.
And Melanie has the same dry eye retina erosion thing I do, which is kind of weird. And so I don't know. My brother and I went bald like really at a young age, like, wish I had some hair, but 22, 23 years old. And we're talking about the magnetic fields. We've got a video of a compass spinning from our car that night. We still have it.
That's so crazy. Actually, yeah, that was the thing from it was from your experience too. It was the same kind of thing that happened.
Didn't make it.
Yeah.
Episode,
And Melanie affects lights. They go on and off. And she actually turned off her husband's car when he started it outside. If she came close, it would shut off. She sent me video of that originally. So I've actually seen this. But Melanie Kurtzdorfer has the effect of affecting electronics.
Wow.
You want to hear something really crazy about Melanie, right? So, she used to come in our diner when she was a little kid, and she used to get these like Swiss cheese type sandwiches with onions, right? That's one of the reasons you remember it. She used to get a little bag, and she'd go to the lake. She's like 12 years old or whatever. But the thing that's interesting, like she says things to me sometimes, and I'm like, I'm trying to, grasp, just mind from what she's telling me. And so one day, she was telling me that she feels things in the room, the house, like a paranormal type of thing, right? When I see shadows and things, I've always had that kind of activity in my home anyway. But, you're having this conversation like we might be right now. And so we ended up doing a podcast together. And during the podcast, I had taken a picture because the people we were talking to, somebody was like, "Hey, what podcast you doing?" So I reached back with my camera, and with the cell phone, I took a picture of Melanie and I on this podcast with everyone else. And then afterwards, I had sent it to her and some other people, and there was a third person in that leaning over the sofa next to Melanie. So we're like, was that a double type of feed that came through? Does that actually happen? It'd be like taking a picture of you right now, not seeing anybody, and then developing it later and seeing a figure behind you. It was that interesting. And it was right by her sofa. And the guy's leaning over her sofa. You can see it almost clear as day. And nobody was at her house except her husband, H. And so I'm looking at it like, okay, did that feed through at the same time for the second I took the picture? How does that happen? And that's kind of where my mind was going, like trying to make sense of it. And but the interesting thing is, you look at it closely, it's leaning over her sofa. It's not like the person's in front of the sofa. It's I still have Melanie still has it, I'm sure. It's the weirdest thing.
Wow.
So you hear things from people right now and then, and you're like, man, I don't know what to make of that. And then every now and then it's backed up. And sooner or later, you got to ask the obvious questions, right? Like, what's really going on here?
Yeah.
Strangest thing.
I guess I got to ask you this, Doug. What was it that you did specifically in the episode that you worked on with Tom on the Berkshire UFOs? Can you walk us through it?
So basically, pretty much for any episode, we get a briefing of what the basic elements of the story are, and we always travel to the spot where the experiences happen, or whatever case we're covering, or experience we're covering happened. So we canvassed the Berkshires. They came out before I was involved with it, and did pre-interviews with Tom and everyone else, and location scouting, figuring out where we're going to be filming and that kind of stuff. Tom was a huge help, obviously, with the bridge, and getting access to all the places that we needed to go to tell his part of the story. And then I worked with Marcus, and Marcus, the director, and Justin Janowitz, who was the director of photography. That's Marcus right there, and that's Josh, one of the producers, story producers. And we would come out, do all the interviews, and get all of the information on camera, because a lot of times we'll do the pre-interviews and get the basic information, but then when they actually sit down with the director and do the full interviews, I mean, Tom, they interviewed you for probably 4 to 6 hours at least, right?
Actually, probably longer than that. I got there around 10 in the morning. We wrapped up around maybe 6 or 7, and then we filmed in the limo there for a while.
Well, you probably do 2 or 3 days, because then you're going out to the site of.
Yeah. So I'd say all in all, it was a good 2 full days. And Marcus was friggin' cool. The crew was amazing. That camera mounted on the side of the limo was pretty cool. That got some interest going down the road. We're driving through the town of Sheffield, which has like 3,000 people to their name. And there's this limo with all this equipment on it, and a film crew across the street. I mean, I think they're still talking about it. Yeah, it was.
Tell us about this, Tom.
Yeah, well, here's another thing nobody knows. I actually had 100 and something temperature when I shot that. I was eating antibiotics like popcorn, man. I had pneumonia, and I was like, just in some respects, it might have worked out, because I was a little tired, and I usually, get a little deeper in thought when I'm a little more rested, and just kind of let it fly. It's kind of like, it is what it is, and so we sat in that bridge for quite some time, and they had flaps on each side, so it was dark in there. They controlled the lighting. It was Marcus was great. I mean, like, I'm talking a little bit here, and I don't, whatever, I'm getting into an area about my father and how he lost his life, and Marcus like, hey man, you want some water? Come over to get me a water, a Gatorade, whatever I wanted. They'd take a couple of minutes, he'd come over and talk to me, and you okay? You all right? We'll go again. I mean, it was genuine. He actually was kind of cool. I liked him. He's cool. And the whole team was pretty cool. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, when did you meet up with Doug?
I don't know. At the time, I met so many people. I don't know who was who, really. It's like, I got this little call sheet, and I'm like, this is who you call for this, and this is call for that. And in the beginning, when I was introduced to Marcus and everyone else, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out who's who. There was a little Oriental woman there, an Asian woman. She was super cool. She was running all the printers and making copies of the documents and everything.
Yeah, it's probably Susan.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry?
It's probably Susan.
I think it was. She was cool.
Yeah, she was amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a fun group. I think that's what I liked about it. Everyone was like chilled. When you see that many people and haven't done a show in a while, you're like, oh wow, it's gonna be uptight, it's gonna be tense. You sit over there, that's your food truck. You know what I mean. That SAG is over there, you eat off the truck, and you know what I mean. But everyone was just laid back, man. I got a lot of pictures from it. Do you mind if I get a couple shots? And some of the locals in the area wanted to go through, right, and they couldn't because we're filming. But they would sit there and take a break and let everybody come through, and then take some pictures, and everyone was cool with it. So it was just, I don't know, enjoyable. It was a nice couple of days,
Yeah. I mean, it's a different type of shoot than like a movie shoot, because we're dealing with, it's more of a documentary, and we're just trying to capture the realism of what the people's experiences is, and trying to portray that as fully as we can in the amount of time we have, while there's so many other factors involved too.
Yeah. Like, I'm still mic'd up and I'm taking a break, and I'd find out that they're filming me just walking around because, maybe they need that B-roll, so it was kind of like that. It was like we were all just hanging out. We had a limo, some cool equipment, food, drink, and we hung out for a couple of days and we talked. and they used what they wanted to. It was that simple, really. So sitting in that little bridge, was probably made for a long couple hours, but it was quiet and wasn't pressured, and it was just kind of would like to talk to you about your father, would like to talk to you about the United Nations, would like to talk to you about what happened, what did you see? And there were no distractions. I it was peaceful, and everyone was quiet and professional, and I just kind of connected with Marcus and told him what I saw.
And is this what you saw?
That's one of them, yeah. And that is an unbelievably close depiction. The only thing I'll tell you is that the sides of that stick out more. What I saw had a wider middle band around the middle, and it was like 100 yards long in size, at least. Like Jan Green depicted. That you could barely see from
Right.
side to side, and it had lines in it like that. I've always referenced it as looking like a turtle shell. And
But the same kind of metallic and overall it looks pretty close to.
yeah, except what I saw did not look shiny and modern and cool. It was more like a weathered, tarnished kind of pewter with gold and bronze colors in it. When I was talking to Melanie, she's like, "Oh yeah, and there's a red glow off the side of it." Because I never told anyone that. And yeah, there was one side of it had put up like it's not like it shot out light. It was as if one part of the shell emitted a glow.
Like it emanated, yeah.
Yeah, like so. When I was looking out the window, and my mom's looking at it, it was like the right side of it was lit up, and as you look to the left, you could still see, but it was really the top right 20% that put out like this reddish color. And so people will say, "Oh, you said it had lights." Well, it put out a light. It emitted a light. I don't remember any light itself, which was a reddish tint. So Melanie's like, "Yeah, when I saw it over the lake with my father, it had this big red light, a red color to it." I'm like, those little things, those details. You're like, son of a bitch, you did see it, Yeah.
So I have a question then with this picture. If it emitted a light from the skin of the craft, what is the light underneath it?
Now they put that there just to give it some definition, I guess.
Okay, so that's an add-on. Gotcha.
Yeah, the white light underneath it. Yeah.
This is a frame from the episode.
No, it was one that I gave them, but they didn't use it.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is
and they asked me, "Is it perfect?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but it's close."
Because that's the thing in the episode. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. They were pretty specific to not because we initially, as a production designer, the first round of what I got, we were going to build a full craft and do a whole thing and show a lot more, and then it got pared down because they wanted it to be, from the viewer's point of view, it's hard to explain what it is. Like a lot of the descriptions were, it's a light, or color of light that you can't even explain. It's all different types of light. You can't even explain what it really looks like. It's just something you haven't seen before, which makes sense, Yeah,
I saw what they had said. They took me to my old house, where I used to live, and I was going to be sitting on top of this stable as a kid, right? So I'm going to get up. So when I was young, my mom's like, after we had this experience, she's like, "What do you want for your birthday? What do you want?" Birthday, I think it was birthday or Christmas, one of the two. And I'm like, "I want a camera, because if I ever see something like this again, I want to get a picture of it." That became my career. So I ended up getting a camera, and I ended up working with Omni Penthouse in New York City for a while. Then I went to Miami, but who knows where my career would have gone. So they had this moment in there where I was going to be sitting on our old roof of the stable and kind of doing a reenactment of that. And I thought that was kind of cool, but that brought back a lot of memories too when I was walking up our old driveway. I mean, and so a lot of it kind of worked to get you back in touch. Even if I didn't shoot there, it was weird being there.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, being out there at the bridge, and just hearing the story and having the experience of being there. We went out there at nighttime to see what it looked like at night and stuff, and used it. If as an editor too, and something, seeing it on TV and seeing it in person is a lot different experience. Like,
Oh yes.
the vastness of the sky there, and just the fact that it's so open and like you can look in any direction and see from miles around. So for you to see whatever you're seeing, it's going to be pretty clear what it is. It's going to light up and be pitch black. Otherwise, you're going to see.
Right.
Did you find the area ominous?
I mean, certainly more so because we were of the reason we were there, and the fact that we were kind of had all these stories in our head and we're hearing them as we're like looking into the skies, as you're talking, we're standing there, so it takes on a different meaning, and then you have the UFO park there and the monuments and all that stuff, and it's just it's serene, and it's there's a lot of things in this world you have to be in the right mindset to be able to understand or appreciate or even just believe. It's a lot.
Well, I am gonna share with everybody this, because even though it's been shared before, it needs to be shown again. This is what Tom saw. Tom, explain it.
Yeah, actually, something else I talk about a lot is that, I remember seeing what looked like an ant with the head about the size of a football. And so I had sketched, what I saw, and it hung in my 4th grade classroom. And oddly enough, I had come back, like the following day or 2 days later, whatever it was kind of like it wasn't like a homeroom class. It was like an art class or something. And I remember standing in the doorway of I was in 4th grade. And this was maybe, I don't know, a few months afterwards. And I said to the teacher, they're not green and they're not from Mars. And she looked at these other pictures that other children had drawn themselves and had taped to the bottom of the chalkboard. And she looked over to it, and I wouldn't come in the classroom. I just stood in the doorway of this class, and I said I wouldn't go in because it was freaking me out. And I actually have the drawing. I think I've got a copy of it that you've got, actually, that I actually
that black one,
10 years old, and it actually hangs in Roswell. It's in a museum.
Okay, I have it, but I'm gonna have
So
to
that's kind of weird to be standing there like that, and so all this.
Yeah, and so is that something that you saw on the encounter you talked about on Unsolved Mysteries, or afterwards? Because I know you had stuff afterwards.
During 1969, the Unsolved Mysteries episode, right there. That's I drew that when I was like 10 years old.
Wow.
It's been touched up and it's been flipped into a reversal, but and the thing is, I still try to ask myself, why does it look like it's got 5 limbs, and then, but I drew something like those little crafts, I had another one where I had the willow tree and everything else. And these images were actually, they hung in Sheffield Center School in Sheffield, Massachusetts. But so did all these other kids. Like, we used to take the bus, and all these kids would be talking about it on the bus. And the bigger bullies, the suspenders, the ones that live there locally and are just not really in tune with some of the stuff going on. They would give the kids a hard time on the bus. So the bus driver used to have to break up fights on the bus over this. It was pretty, but you've been there. You know how many people saw this.
Yeah. I mean, and you were saying also, at your mother's diner too, people would talk about it there and it would turn into a whole thing,
Yeah. And one of the reasons for that, about the space race, the goodwill message that was left on the moon was manufactured right down the road from our diner. Our diner used to feed people who worked on the space race. And so everybody back in the day too was, looking up because we're going to the moon, right? So there was also a little bit of that at the same time, but there was an interest, I think, with regard to going to the moon, And so after the goodwill message, you remember the racetrack? You drove through town. Do you remember the fairgrounds?
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of people from New York City would come into town because it was the second biggest track to Saratoga. And so rather than go to Saratoga, they would go to the Great Barrington track. And our diner is the closest diner to the racetrack.
Yeah.
So those that are making money, working on GE and Sprague Electric and the space race, and all that money was being funded into the area, they would eat at our diner and then go to the races. So there was that connection with the space race too. There's so much stuff that went on. And then, like, about the fights in the diner. So we'd be talking about what we saw, and other people like, hey, you can't talk about that. My father could lose his job. I mean, it's a secret space program, and you guys are talking about UFOs. And that was a dynamic too.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
We have a comment in the chat that I got to address. Snoop's in 1969 was one of several sightings, and Unsolved Mysteries episode was done recently, right, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, it came out in 2019, right? It was
years
like
ago. Yeah.
summer 2019 was the one we did with Tom here up in the Berkshires, and then the this last October was another episode that came out about another whole mass sighting documented in Holland, Michigan. And then there's another episode called Paranormal Rangers, and that's in the Navajo Nation, and also follows a lot of UFO experiences that were seen by Native people also.
The Paranormal Rangers kind of has a connection to my logo, because the reason why I designed my logo the way it is because of tribal elders claiming that star people visited them and gave them agriculture and mathematics and architecture. And I dedicated the star in the head of the alien head to star people.
That's incredible.
So that's why it was designed that way.
There actually is mention of that in the episode where, they talk about kind of, it almost picks up where the episode with Tom in the first season, that episode ends with them showing all of these videos that the government released that year that were people in the Air Force, people, with radar access talking about, live watching this and saying, this is unbelievable. What the hell is that? And now this,
Right.
Literally less than 2-3 years later, we're looking at an article today saying, oh, that's not a thing,
Yeah, like I said before the show, if you refer back to Project Sign, they wrote it off. They said at first it's a national security threat, nothing to see here, and they wrote it off. That's exactly what they're doing now, and I checked and confirmed this with someone who's working behind the scenes. They're trying to write it off and take attention away from it so that nobody is talking about it, either in the media or publicly. Now, whether they're still working on it or not, I don't know. I would like to think that they are.
The Berkshire's UFO too was rebooted in the Associated Press 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe they're using that to cover up.
It's a back and forth of, getting picked up as clickbait and being picked up as, stuff that report on around Halloween or whatever. But then, there's also reports of, over Kyiv and all over places in Ukraine where it's getting bombed. There's more sightings of UAPs in that area. And that's something they can also cover up and say that it's, part of Russia or part of Ukraine. But it's, that's what happened when we started testing the atomic bomb. They started poking around,
When you were mentioning earlier about that Minnesota case, I wanted to tell you that there was a Minnesota case near me that had 6 rectangular UFOs that stayed in place for 25 minutes, broad daylight, 500 feet up in the air. We knew this because there was a 1,000-foot cloud cover, okay? And within the confines of each rectangle, it was a living fire. And it stayed there for 25 minutes, moved off as a group, came back. The second one from the left was tumbling end over end. There were 12 of us that witnessed it, wow. 7 adults, 5 kids. The kids were so traumatized that night that they had to sleep in a circle in sleeping bags in a community room in a apartment building because they thought these things were going to come back and land.
Wow.
It was that traumatizing. Now, we reported it to the papers, and we checked with local airports for radar data, and we also checked with local sheriffs for any other reports. weren't any. The airport wouldn't give us any data. It was in the paper, and a lot of people locally ruled it out as fireworks. But fireworks don't hang in place
No.
for 25 minutes. And they're usually not evenly spaced in a straight horizontal line. Okay.
Yeah,
And they're
just-
usually not the size of Volkswagens. I mean, big cars, Yeah, there's the corn.
That's some of it.
That's some of the big corn.
Yeah, that guy's like
Wow.
almost 6 feet, 5'11". I mean, that's like 12 to 13, maybe 14 feet. I got some stuff where the corn is actually as long as your arm. One single cob. I'm looking for it.
That's so crazy.
It's weird, right? That's some serious corn.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying that's where in the Berkshires where activity happened and
Yeah, it's right near, like within 20, 50 feet of where it happened. It's right there, right? Probably where you walked. And the thing is, it doesn't grow like that across the way.
Yeah, you were saying it doesn't grow right on the other side. That's so crazy.
Yeah, there's an uptick in sightings right now, even though they're ruling it out, which is odd.
Well, this is literally, the same people who, it's the Pentagon, it's, the FBI, it's the people who have Project Blue Book, and they don't talk about it until 50 years after it's over or whatever,
Right. Same playbook, different decade.
Just
Right.
changing the name.
I agree. Hard to see what that is, Tom. What are you showing us? Well, the cob of corn.
Oh, is that the big? That's crazy.
Can't hear you, Tom.
Yeah, I got it down. God, can you see that or you can't see it?
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's as long as her arm. Now,
Snoop's
I like
in-
corn like everyone else, but I'm not eating that.
They want to know in the chat room if you can eat that corn.
Have people been eating it? Have they been selling it?
No, they won't eat it. They actually what they do is they just grind it up and they give it to cows in the area.
Oh, wow.
So they're eating this weird corn and they're drinking out of a toxic lake or a river. Do you know the Housatonic's one of the most toxic waterways in America?
Really? Wow.
They bring their dogs there and they drink the water. It's like, yeah,
the safe version of toxic. I mean, when all of that stuff happened with the radiation leaking into the sea in Japan, and you see these charts of it kind of, the entire ocean is infected with this radiation at this point between the fish and the animals that got infected there and how it's spread out. They literally just, instead of saying that it's not safe to eat this fish anymore, they just raised the radiation levels to be acceptable. It's higher now. You can eat. We figured out it's safe enough that you can eat more radiation, so we don't have to tell you what is actually happening.
Let's not follow the guidelines. Let's just raise the bar on the amount of radiation I can ingest.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just make that badge not turn red as quickly.
Hey, I'm going to try to send you this picture so you can put it up because people in chat are like, I want to see it. Should I send it to your phone or send it to your email?
Send it to my messenger and I'll take a screen grab and put it on StreamYard.
All right. Otherwise.
Yeah, I actually had because I don't think I've ever really personally experienced anything that I could define as a UFO experience myself. I've heard a lot of stories and I've, done a lot of research and, enthusiasm about the, UFOs and this kind of stuff. But there was one incident when I was 7 or 8 years old. There's actually someone in the chat room who might have been around. That's maybe the reason to bring it up. His name's Charles. You should mention it if you remember this, Charles. There was a time me, my brother, my sister, my father, we went outside my house, and there was this thing that it looked like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Literally, it looked like a UFO. Some kind of ship was over my neighbor's house, very like 100 feet above, and we were watching sightings and Unsolved Mysteries at the time. I was really psyched up about it, but I was young, and my dad convinced me, or maybe he told me it was the Goodyear blimp that had kind of came down closer in the area. And back then, I literally put it out of my mind for a really long time. And then more recently, when I started working the show, I talked to my mother and my sister about it, and she's like, "Yeah, that there was no way the Goodyear blimp came down was 100 feet over my house and then took off and disappeared."
Right.
So that is something that my young mind, I would just I
It's
don't know
impressionable.
better. I was told it was the Goodyear blimp, and for years I just thought it was. But then, being an adult and rationally thinking about it,
Yeah.
it didn't look like a blimp at all.
Yeah. Your mind wants to make sense of it, right? Your father wants to make sense of it. He's just trying to.
They don't want to freak you out. They're just like, okay, it was a blimp. Okay, I'm going to school. I'm not going to think about it ever again because they told me it was a blimp.
Right. Put it out of your mind, out of sight. Yeah, I
Well,
got it.
my sister, who's 2 years older than me, said, she's very, more rational than I am, I would say. And she, same thing. Like, I don't think that was a blimp, but I don't know. I really too young to remember exactly.
There's the corn.
That's just what she grabbed. Now, you lay that down, that's probably close to the length of her arm. It's much longer than the forearm. That's got to be 2.5 feet long. And that's those are actual photos that were also given to the guys, when they came down. And there's actually one that shows the burn marks on the, but yeah, there you go. Heat it up. So, I'm not an expert on, that, what do you
There
call
were
it?
definite.
That's corn. So I don't think it makes sense to people. Like, why would it be in corn? But it was there.
There are a lot of crop circles in corn, believe it or not. I've seen crop circles locally in corn, but simple ones, where they're just like cookie cutter clean in just a circle. I've seen a couple of them. But in regards to corn, it's actually quite common, Tom.
What happened? And it's.
I mean, look at the movie Signs when it came out. Where were the crop circles? In corn. And that was based on stories of actual encounters. So I have to say this, Doug. I figured it out. I've been thinking about it all night long. You look like Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa, okay. I've gotten that a few times. I get I guess when my hair and my beard's a little bit shorter, I sometimes get Seth Rogen too.
Oh yeah, or Party Jesus.
Party Jesus. There you go.
UFO Jesus. There you go.
Yeah, this is my quarantine hair / I guess Kabuki Man hair. Like I mentioned, I've been working on this sequel to Kabuki Man for Trauma, and when we started doing the teaser, it's actually on my YouTube page in 2019. I started growing my hair out for the role, and for numerous reasons. Actually, Unsolved Mysteries pushed it back quite a bit because we literally stopped working on it for like a year so I could do Unsolved Mysteries. We're kind of getting back to it, so I'll be using it soon, hopefully.
I heard a rumor that you might be participating in the upcoming UFO Expo.
Yeah, I definitely am interested. I heard about it a few days ago, and it's in Roswell. What are the dates again?
March 9th through the 12th, I think.
March 9th through 12th?
10th through the 12th.
Yeah, well, 10th, 11th, to 12th, but Thursday the 9th we're setting up,
But yeah, I think I might try and get out there, or at the very least, maybe come in on for a Zoom panel or something like that.
We're screening a lot of films, Melissa Tittle, if you know who she is, she's got that Code 12 we're showing, and James Fox is going to be there. Moment of Contact. Basically, it's a huge film, film fest. Travis will be there. Guys from Ancient Aliens. It's going to be fun. So yeah, you're more than welcome for sure.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to zoom in too. So
you could put together maybe a track around Unsolved Mysteries to talk about all the different shows you worked on or something like that. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, because they definitely tied together, all the episodes I worked on, which are 3 UFO specific episodes now. There's all things in them that, tie them together in a way. People having similar experiences in different parts of the world, different times, different time periods. Even going back into native times and stuff, just, before America existed and before, anyone was even here,
Okay, well, I got to run this for Tom real quick. Here it goes.
Yeah, because I got the 10 Thank you.
Okay, there we go. That's his ad.
I'll go through it.
Yeah. Hey, so listen, I got Tim knows I got a family thing at 10 o'clock, Christmas and stuff.
Well, just hang tight for a second, Tom.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to end the interview by saying thank you to everybody in the chat room for participating.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Doug. We'll have you back when we have a little more time with Tom so we can go more in depth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go through the other episodes a little bit more, and you can check out on my website at DougSakmann.com. It has the other things, and there's links to all the stuff I'm working on there.
Yeah.
Right. He's really into horror, people. So if you really want to look into the real Doug Sakmann, look into horror, especially like The Walking Dead and some other horror films. He's really good at that. I've seen a lot of stuff. If you're into blood and gore, Doug Sakmann.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on Netflix, Amazon, and Trauma Now. Free month subscription. Watch.trauma.com. And if you search my name, you can actually find my first few movies based on the Vance Warped Tour up there, and a bunch of stuff with Kabuki Man, the Toxic Avenger, and all that stuff.
Hey,
so
I'm sorry. I just want to say thanks again, man, for.
Oh yeah, thanks. It's great to see you again, and we'll catch up real soon.
Yeah, right,
nice meeting you, Doug.
And Tim, pleasure meeting you, and we'll connect very soon. Have a good holiday, everyone, and thanks for everyone in the chat room.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah, if you want to talk about anything else, hit me up, DougSakmann@gmail.com.
We'll do so.
Drink slow, drive slow.
I love the arm. Good night, everybody.